Hello everyone, welcome to Onion Skin, and big news, very big news. Toon Boom is changing. Well, it has changed in a very significant way. If you go to the Toon Boom website at the moment, you will see that Toon Boom Studio, Animate, and Animate Pro are gone. They're not around anymore. You can still get them for a little bit, but pretty soon they're going to stop offering it completely. So what does this mean? Instead, they've replaced it with 3 different versions of Harmony 12. Brand new version of Harmony. So what does this mean for you, and what does it mean for Onion Skin? Because we've done all these videos in the other versions. So let's take a quick look at the 3 new versions of Toon Boom and talk about where we're going to head from now on. So Toon Boom have broken Harmony into 3 different versions called Essentials, Advanced, and Premium. And these are replacing Studio, Animate/Animate Pro, and Harmony 11. So first is this one, Harmony Essentials. This is the equivalent of Toon Boom Studio, or the closest thing to Flash now. Looking around, and just from what I've dabbled in so far, all of the features that are available are almost identical to what Studio had. The big difference is that now it shares the Harmony layout, and this is a really good thing because Harmony has a much better layout. Everything's a bit smaller, it's a bit cleaner, it's a lot more customizable, and the program picks up a lot of features just from looking like this. So for example, things that Essentials can do that Studio could not is things like locking layers. Studio did not have these little padlocks down here, so that's definitely a nice thing to see. Buttons and controls have a pretty easy spot to get around because now everything has both the tool properties and the layer properties panels, rather than just a single properties panel like in Studio. One massive difference is now bone rigging is gone and replaced with deformation rigs, which is what Harmony uses, and it is ridiculously easy to use. You can see live in real time I've just set up a joint, and look how it's bending that vector right around. That's awesome. In Studio it was a full skin unwrap, areas of influence. Like, there were so many steps involved that it was usually faster to animate it traditionally frame by frame. So this is a huge relief that they've gone in this direction. So what does this mean for people who are using Studio currently? Well, I understand if you don't want to fork out again just to get a program that's pretty much the same but a little bit different. But I will be focusing the series that was involving the domestic killbot in this from now on. You should still be able to follow along just fine. If there's a large demand to still cover the classic bone rigging process, I will. But for the most part, it should be okay. I suppose the good thing on my end is I only have to teach one program now. But when there are big differences between Studio and this, I will go back to Studio and point out what's changed and where you can find the button in its new location or the equivalent workaround. Next up is Harmony Advanced, the equivalent to Toon Boom Animate and Animate Pro. How it seems they've gone about the upgrades is there's a couple of big add-ons and a lot of subtle ones. One of the big ones for Advanced is there's now bitmap layers as well as vector ones. So you see here, adding a new layer, I've added a bitmap one now, and it gets this kind of color picker instead, and a brush setting like this. So now you can sort out your hardness, your weight, different brush kinds, all this stuff that you'd expect to find in Photoshop. So this is pretty amazing. Now you can make your backgrounds and stuff directly in here. It's a shame not to see tools such as like smudge and whatnot involved, because then you probably wouldn't need to use programs like Photoshop at all. But it's one step closer to that, and this will be really good for adding textures and stuff on the go without having to duck between different programs. And it's a big deal that bitmap is an option in Harmony Advanced. Previously, it was only in the topmost end version of the product. Animate and Animate Pro users couldn't do this. So they've made it a lot more accessible, which is great. However, unfortunately, the other end of the stick there is this version does not have the module view anymore. And that's a huge shame. I would have really liked to have seen it in here, even if it only had a few nodes. Like, the effects are here. If you go down the plus down there is a list of effects there, and it's definitely enough to get you by. But the option of being able to see them in the node layout and string them together in any order gives you a lot more flexibility, and it makes things a lot faster, even if you only have a couple of nodes to play with. So it would have been nice to have the network view with only a few things to do, rather than the full suite like Harmony Premium has. So it's an unfortunate loss, especially if you're an Animate Pro user, because you would have had it before and now it's gone. So if you were an Animate Pro user, you might be better off sticking with that, unless bitmap drawing is really, really appealing to you. If you're a studio user and you're thinking now's the time to upgrade, this is a pretty good option. And at last is Harmony Premium, the equivalent to Toon Boom Harmony before, only now it's a lot more accessible. Before, Harmony could only be purchased through the sales team, which meant there was negotiation involved, and really you'd only be looking at getting it if you were a seasoned pro. You've been doing this for a long time. But now you can just up and get it, which is great. And there's free trial versions of all of them, so you can test out the 3 different versions and see what's good for you. I highly recommend this one simply, as I've said before, the node view is a thing, previously called the module network. It works the same way as it did before, only it's got a lot more bits going on. It's laid out a bit differently, because you can go right from the very conceptualization of your idea to a full-on, film quality look in the end. A couple of other subtle differences, and they are small, but they make a big difference, is things like this. In the deformation, you saw in Essentials how it was like a series of bones and joints. It would articulate quite sharply. You can still do that here, but they add in curve deformers as well. So now you can use these handles here and start bending your artwork around in crazy ways like this. And this is incredibly powerful. That's just a brushstroke that I drew. So, let your imagination go wild there as to how you can have it cause hair to wave about or warp things around other stuff. And there's a lot of other things that have been added in Harmony 12 as well. There's like bump maps and things now, so rather than shading stuff by hand, you can use a physical light source to light up your hand-drawn character, which is pretty nuts. Go to their website and you can watch their advertisement videos and trailers, and I was quite impressed by it. I reckon you'll be as well. So what should you do if you've already got Toon Boom? Or even if you don't? The pricing looks pretty good, in my opinion. Essentials costs pretty much exactly what Studio did before. So if you're looking at getting into Toon Boom now, that's a no-brainer, really. Advanced is a bit of a tricky one because it costs the same that Animate Pro did before, or more or less. And you're getting things like bitmap, but you're losing out on the node network, which is a pretty big kick, depending on if you think you were going to use it. You can still use effects, though, so it's... you can still get the same result. It's a bit more of a workaround, though, and I'll show you how to do that. But Harmony, if you're willing to spend, around $2,000 for it, it's going to be worth it, especially if you're going to be making an income off this stuff. It caters to so many different styles and forms of animation that you'll probably never exhaust the amount of features that there are, and the amount of ways that you can combine the styles and techniques together. I'll definitely be getting it. I think it's great. And what does it mean for the tutorials here on in? There's a few videos to go with the straw budgie concept in the Migrating from Flash series, so I'm still going to polish those off and get them uploaded using old versions of Toon Boom. And from then on, everything I do is going to be using Harmony Premium, but I will make specific note of if it's a tutorial that's possible in Advanced or Essentials as well. So I'm still going to be having whole series that are dedicated towards Essentials or Toon Boom Studio users, like that domestic Killbot one where it was covering just all the drawing tools, and I was just getting started on covering all the animation tools and techniques. We'll still be doing all of that, only now the tutorials will be relevant to a much wider audience, whereas something was just for studio users before. If you're an Animate Pro user, you'd have to do a lot more thinking to follow along with those ones because the tools were in a different place and they all work slightly differently and in a bit of a nicer way. So yeah, now my whole process can be a lot more streamlined. When I talk about doing motion paths in animating, it's motion paths in animating. It's going to be the same thing for everyone. So I think we're going to have a nicer time, and you should see content from me a bit more regularly as well. So as before, tell me what's on your mind and what's worrying you about this and what's got you excited about this, because I always want to cater my content towards what's necessary. Nothing worse than having me blab on about stuff that no one's interested in. So yeah, new direction for all of us, I think. For Animate Pro, and Harmony users, the differences aren't that major that if you've got one, you'll need to upgrade. Following tutorials along in this, you will get by. But again, if there's something that's wildly different, I'll likely pop it open anyway and show you what the difference is. So thanks for listening to me blabble on. This was a pretty off-the-cuff one because I wanted to get this out as quick as I could, because I was quite taken by surprise that this is now a thing and I'm going to have to restructure everything that was planned. But that's the way it goes.